Uncle Go Clip.
SpaceX is slightly older than Tesla as well. So SpaceX was founded in 2002. And this happened because when he was booted out of PayPal, he was kind of at a loss as to what to do. And he thought back to his list of existential threats. And the whole single planet species thing came up. So the thinking behind that is that we live on this one planet. It's vulnerable to, like you said, viruses, AI takeover, an asteroid hitting it, stars exploding nearby and sending gouts of radiation at us, whatever. So if we can establish a permanent home on another world, that doubles our chances of surviving any of those threats. And more than that, you know, he was a fan of science fiction growing up. He was thinking, where's the moon base? Where's the Mars base? Yeah. So he went on NASA's website and he looked it up, looked at their Mars page, and there was nothing. There was no plan. So he was kind of stunned by this. And he thought, okay, well, it's probably just an issue of the budget for NASA. So what informs the budget? Well, politicians, obviously. What informs politicians' public will? Well, if I can maybe use some of my riches to excite the public about Mars, it might push NASA towards doing something. So he came up with this idea of, initially he wanted to send mice to Mars, and he started to talk to a few rocket scientists that he could get his hands on, and they reminded him that mice need to eat and dispose of the food after they've eaten. So you needed to do a very complex set of equipment inside the rocket then in order to support that. So mice are maybe a little bit too complex for $150 million to pull off going to Mars. Mm-hmm. $150 million to send anything to Mars is pretty ambitious. But then he decided, well, what about a machine that you can land on Mars and inside a Perspex box with atmosphere and a little bit of soil, you can plant a seed, have a plant grow, and put a webcam showing the plant growing on the surface of Mars, this green on the background of red, and inspire people in that way. So that was the plan. And in shopping around, he found that rockets are very expensive. I was surprised to learn that. And ended up looking at what was at that time, this is 2000 or 2001, around that time frame, the former Soviet Union was sort of getting back up after the collapse of the Soviet Union at this point. But there was a lot of kind of profiteering going on in the Soviet military, or what had been the Soviet military, and lots of hardware being sold off to various dodgy parts of the world.
Entities.
But he got wind of them. Sorry?
Dodgy entities.
Dodgy entities, yes. Kind of gives you the impression of glowing cloud. But yeah, so he decided to see if he could take advantage of this. And he went over to Russia with the intention of buying an ICBM and refitting it for interplanetary travel. Tall order at the best of times, but he met with a former Soviet general and their staff and said, I'd like to buy this rocket. How much do you want for it? And the Russians were saying $20 million. You can have this rocket for $20 million. But as the conversation wore on, that price crept up, almost in proportion with the amount of vodka that was being served to the Americans. So it was like, drink vodka and you can have this $30 million rocket. Have more vodka for $40 million rocket. And it just kept creeping up. And when Musk...
Russian negotiation tactics.
Exactly. When Musk called them on this creeping price increase, the general that they were speaking to spat on him and called him a naive capitalist American. He was, at least one of those things was wrong. So anyway, he came away from that, and himself and this gaggle of rocket scientists that he had kind of been gathering up for the last couple of years at this point were flying home. Musk was in the seat in the row ahead of them, and he had been completely quiet since they took off. They thought they were all feeling very defeated and despondent about what had happened. And he had been hunched down in his seat, and then suddenly his head appears over the back of the seat, and he has his laptop in his hand. He goes, guys, look at this. And he has a spreadsheet laid out where he has, after absorbing knowledge from these guys for a few months, he has a pretty good idea of what goes into a rocket in terms of materials and design and all of that. And he has a spreadsheet laid out. And what he has been doing for the several hours of the flight up to this point was working out what the actual material and labor costs were to build a rocket. And he had accounted for it all and said, like, this is so much cheaper than any price quote that we have gotten. Why don't we do it ourselves? And that's how SpaceX was born.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see the full version, go to the Uncle Gold Podcast YouTube channel or watch the next clip.